Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm so excited you're here, and I we have another really special guest today, and we'll be talking all things intuition and trusting your vibes. So today we have here Sonia Tully, and I will just quickly say I discovered Sonia through her podcast. It's all related and it's so much fun. And I talked about it in the podcast before, but it's been a crazy time of transformation for me. And I turned to resources, books, podcasts on all things related to spirituality and transformation and personal growth. And one thing that I love about your podcast is how much fun you're making spirituality and how playful you're making it. And that just really resonated with me. I know you're a fourth generation intuitive guide, co-author of the book You're Amazing, and then again a podcast host of It's All Related with Your Family. And I'm super excited you're here. Thank you so much for joining. And with that, I want to turn it over to you to introduce yourself.
My goodness. Hi, I'm so grateful to be here, Andrea. And hi to your beautiful listeners. I'm Sonia. As I said, I'm a fourth generation intuitive. I'm using the pronouns she, her. And that is what I do. I come from a family that really gave me a wonderful toolkit that we all have access to, language and support your intuition, which in my word is like the voice of your spirit, your deeper self. And, your intuition is your innate divine compass that always leads you to your highest north. And so in my world, we're all intuitive. You're intuitive. Everybody listening to this is intuitive. What we do is to just help give you tools to better listen. And what I also love that you said, Andrea, was playful because, you know, spiritual work and doing work can be very deep. But as we were just chatting about before we started, a real hallmark of living a heart centered, connected spiritual life is fun and play and joy, because those are the gifts of your spirit that has us connect.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to talk more about that piece around joy and having fun because again, I love how you and your work really center the playful side and having fun when we talk about trusting our vibes and spirituality. And yeah, I wanted to see if you can share more about that.
Yeah. So I would love to. I I've really found that often in our world that we suffer from too much seriousness. And we believe that being serious means that it's important in one way or another, that it gives it more value. And serious is important, but when we're talking about play, in my world, play is a hallmark of deeper listening, of trusting ourselves, trusting the moment, trusting each other, and creating. It's an invitation. When we play, and when play, I feel like can sometimes be a loaded word for people. It's like, what does that even mean? And play for me is feeling the safety to explore new experiences, to create, and to connect. And it's something that we naturally come in with. And so playing bypasses the ego, it bypasses our serious self. And what it naturally does is raises our vibration because it connects us to our heart, that gets us better in touch with our guides, with our angels, with our intuitive compass, and helps us to connect to other people, no matter who they are, no matter what they subscribe to, whatever. It's like we can play together. And it's one of the most powerful energies in the whole world.
That is awesome. And I just really connect to that play piece because I like, so for example, recently, I know everyone's going through a lot. And recently I went through a bit of I felt a little down. And so I don't drink, I don't really like bars, but a friend of mine was like, let's go sing karaoke. And karaoke is something I've always loved. And usually it'd be like, "Ugh, I don't like bars, I don't like
Yeah.
drinking, but I really miss karaoke." So I was like, let's do it. and we sang some Celine Dion, had so much fun, and
Wait, I'm really quick. I'm like, what track did you sing? I have been on a Celine Dion kick. I'm like, what?
so we sang, "It's All Coming Back to Me," and it was the long version, so we didn't expect to be up there for 8 minutes, but it was so much fun, and and what I love about like doing, yeah, allowing ourselves to be playful is I not only had a super fun evening, and in my world it ended at like 9:30 or 10 because
Perfect.
I'm old and
Perfect.
I like my my bedtime, but we had so much fun, and that whole week and the days after I was kind of still basking in how much fun I had. I would watch the video, and it just showed me how, yeah, how much of a difference that makes, not only the night off, but also in my day-to-day life, to allow myself to be silly and play and just focus on having fun.
You know what I love even about that story is when I first hear you're like, okay, I'm not a big drinker. Bars aren't really my scene. I get it. But that you're like, I love my spirit, that deeper part of something that feeds me is karaoke. So that first gate, that's that in my world, I call that your ego intellect. It's like our little protective self that it will, and our ego intellect will self select out. It'll be like, oh, I don't want to do that. So you were like, all right, I am making the choice to follow my intuition and my spirit to show up and go do karaoke. And it's funny because when we're having a hard time, when we're feeling down, let's be real, what's going on in the world is heavy. And to make time and space and energy for joy, for play is uh, an act of hope. It fills our well. It gives us energy to sustain like gas in the gas tank throughout our daily life. And the other beautiful thing about like singing karaoke and what I love is like that's our throat chakra. You know, it's like our intuition resides in our bodies. It's something that's felt. It's not a thought connected to our heart space. And then we have our head, and where we get cut off so often is right here, our little throat. It's like I have a vibe. I'm going to think about it. I'm not going to say anything. So when we sing and when we connect and when we play, it immediately drops you into the present moment. And that's where we hear our intuition. That's where we connect to our vibes. That's where it's like you get, you can start to surf and feel those super high vibes. And I'm like, I find play not at the end of my list, but at the very first. Like nonsense is important. It is important. So much of our life has so much sense that nonsense helps us open us into the third space where we get creative, we do something different, we become guideable.
Yeah, and what I love too, I think I heard on your podcast, I think you talked to your family about, yeah, it can be easy when the world's so heavy and there's so much difficult stuff going on for people around the world. It can be easy then to say, "Oh, I shouldn't be doing this right now. Other people are suffering." But what I love about your work is the idea of, yes, but what kind of energy are we putting out in the world? Should it be more additional heavy energy, or should we focus on bringing lighter energy into the world? Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. And I what I love that you're speaking to is because, you know, it's not a bypass. It's not a, oh, everything's fine, Pollyanna, let's pretend. It's, I would say, the opposite. It's like, you know, we can honor and hold space, but it's being able to hold both. It's not binary. We can have, even at this moment, with, you know, just all the things in the world, we can hold collective grief and within that space still have joy. And that joy, like I'm just tuning into the energy of you guys singing karaoke and that fun, that play, that energy reverberates out. That then might spark somebody in that room who might not wanted to sign up for karaoke or felt nervous or whatever to show up. And that play and that energy that we carry and play because it opens our heart, you know, and that's what connects. And then it spills over into like our day to day life and our little interactions with our neighbors, with the person, the barista at our coffee spot, at the checkout counter, at our work that then becomes infectious. It's like, oh, it's like you think about a good interaction with somebody and a momentary thing, whether somebody pays you an honest compliment or sees you or whatever, that then you carry that energy. You can change somebody else's, and that tiny, it's like a drop that has a way more massive ripple out effect. Like, as my nana would say, you can't take on the whole river. You take your cup to the river. So it's like the river of all of the things that are going on. We can't do all of that, but you can take your cup, show up, and have that have a way bigger effect than what we often are taught to believe.
Wow, I love that connection piece. And another thing that I would add is, so in my last episode, I interviewed one of my favorite drag artists, and I don't know, have you
Ooh,
heard of
who?
Drag Story Hour?
No, but I am loving drag story when they go to the libraries and like read to kids.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm like, sign me up. I'm like, I need to go and be in drag story hour because what a beautiful art of creativity, of connection, of authenticity, of sharing. Like, I'm okay. So yes, I have heard of drag story hour.
Yeah, and so I interviewed, Little Miss Hot Mess on the podcast, and
My
she
God,
was
what a great
talking
name.
about, yeah, how we kind of play something in our society that's seen as reserved for kids, but we
Mm.
all need to engage in play and just have fun. And she was talking about, yeah, how interacting with kids and joining them in their play, how important that has become in her life. So that's kind of like what came to me as you were talking too.
I love that, gives me goosebumps, and you know, it's interesting because even, like, esoterically, I do a lot of different studies, and one thing it reminds me of is in the tarot, there's the major arcana, it's all the major keys. It starts with the Fool, ends with the World, and it's all about your spiritual evolution. Anyway, in spiritual evolution and some of the highest cards, the Sun card is all about returning back to our childlike state of wonder and curiosity. And when you spend time with kids, there are so many things that I love. First, they are not in any ego. They don't care what you do. They don't care how much money you make. They don't care about anything. What they care about is your presence and the energy that you share. Kids want to collaborate. They're interested. They're curious, open. They're flexible. It's like one of the things, like, kids are so resilient. So, like, all right, sure, we're going with this. That are things that not only that we need to be reminded of, but pieces of ourselves that we call back. And like, the play is natural. When you spend time with kids, you're like, it's so funny because I have a niece, and I remember at her first birthday party, I was there and I was chatting with all the adults, and then I was like, this is stale. And you know what? I round up at the kids' table, just having the best time, the absolute best time, because it's a return back to yourself outside of, it's almost like, when I think about play, it's like a lot of times we even play these roles in our life. I am this and I am that. And I'm a finance officer and I'm a parent and I'm a whatever. That then can just become a role that sometimes we get overly identified with. So play helps us come back to our essence, to ourself, that helps to remind us that all identities are multifaceted and that we contain universes and multitudes. So we don't have to get stuck in like a narrow box. That then can open up our own imagination for, like, wait, who do I want to be? What do I want to create? What's even possible? What can we do together?
I love that. Yeah, and it reminds me of another piece that Little Miss Hot Mess shared on our last episode, because she was talking about, again, about drag and saying we focus so much on the gender transformation, but it's also about playing with different aspects of our lives and expressing that. So I love that.
Yeah, so much. You know, it's really inspirational to also, even for myself. I remember even, there have been times where I've had to, like one of my first workshops, there was part of me or my own adult, I was like, oh my gosh, do I know what I'm doing? Whatever. And so it's almost like I put on my own little personality. Like I think of Beyonce as Sasha Fierce, where she's like, I get to be and play and be in this other aspect of myself that can surprise me.
Wow, that yeah, like also that piece about surprising ourselves. That is awesome.
Is my mom would always say, "Never assume you know anyone, including yourself."
Oh,
I know, I'm always
that's
like,
a mic drop moment. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, "Jot that thought."
And yes, speaking of your mom and your family, I know you grew up in an intuitive family. And so I'm curious to hear more about what does living an intuitive life mean to you?
Mm. Living an intuitive life, I'd say first, it's like the way that we're naturally designed to live. So, for me, I didn't really realize that it was different until I hit about second or third grade. Because when I was growing up, spirituality has come a long way, baby. The word like psychic and psycho were very close. So there was a lot of teasing on like the playground, but I didn't get it. But growing up in a family like that, my mom always taught me first to go inward for guidance, for support, for solutions before asking others' opinions. And so anytime like growing up, let's say I had a problem, she would first ask like, what does your spirit, what does your intuition say? And it gave me in a real nutshell a toolkit to go inward, to tap into my own energy, and instead of going for outside approval. And, it's like we would sit around the dinner table and we would talk about the ways that our intuition guided us, how our guides and angels helped us, and it was just really normal, but giving language. And I especially feel like kids are open, they feel things, we sense. And so to just have that mirrored and affirmed of like, oh, you have a vibe, we're going to trust it. Like, even in my family, if we had a bad vibe with my mom, we could go to her and like squeeze her hand 2 times, and that was code for like bad vibes. We gotta get out of here. And what I'm so grateful for is instead of a lot of times in our world where adults don't validate kids or see them as like full people or as important in the sense that was something that was really validated, that gave me a confidence and a curiosity and a whole other way to navigate. And as I would say, from like the inside out, and also super normal. Like I have meltdowns with my sister. We would, have all the other stuff, but it was just that there was always, it was spirit, intuition, all of it was just as normal as anything else.
I love that, and learning that so early seems, like, so wonderful because I remember as, like, a kid, I I always had a really strong intuition, like, when I was 12, 13, I talked about it on the podcast before, but I would watch the '90s show 90210,
Oh my
major
gosh,
guilty
yes.
pleasure,
Oh, I love a guilty pleasure.
and then I would, like, dream about living in California and having fun friends, and that was, like, a fantasy, but then over the years, I started noticing how the universe kind of showed like, moved me in that direction,
Love
and
that you was
how then,
moved.
like, things really aligned to 25 years later bring me to California. And I've just seen over and over in my life. So because and I talked about this on the podcast too. So then I entered a PhD program, became a researcher. So and then I was like, "Oh, time to be a grown up and listen to my head more." And I made some horrible, not horrible, but like some decisions that didn't lead me down paths that felt really aligned. And now I'm like rediscovering the last several years. I've really kind of did the inner work to rediscover my intuitive side. And make intuitive decisions. And while it hasn't always been an easy ride, it's so much more aligned. I feel so much more like myself. And I feel like magical stuff is happening all the time.
I love that, and, just when you're talking about when you were a kid watching 90210, there is something in the energy that you felt, and I just love it, so I dreamt about it. It was like in your imagination, it's that feeling is what creates, right? So even before you were conscious of it, there was like an energy match. So it's like, and then that brought you. And what I love that you said was like making the decisions, being guidable. I was moved, because intuition moves you. It's not information. I'll ask you to do something different. And, just all the ways, a lot of times we will be guided and maybe not even recognize that. And then even just when you're talking about becoming a researcher and being like, okay, I have to like be responsible and like listen to my head voice. And, in myself, it's like your head and your heart can be friends. The intellect alone, our head alone, is not a good bus driver because it only works on appearance, it only works on information. And like all of the information in the world can't change your life, it can't create your dreams, it will support them. So when we start to excavate our heart space, do that deeper listening, what we're listening to, intuition, in other words, is truth. What is our truth? What is true for me for now? When we follow a path of truth and even living an intuitive life, you still go through the stuff. Sometimes it does not make sense to your head. You're like, why? I'm listening to my intuition. I've been guided into the situation and my head's like, what the heck? But on the other side of it, as you say, of building a life that is aligned, and that foundation rooting means that I trust myself, I trust my intuition, trust the universe. I trust that even if I can feel like almost a car on a dark road at night and I can only see my headlights, it's so hard. I know things will work out. I don't know how. And that opens us up to support. And so it's so worth it because a life that is authentic, I feel like it's such an overused word, but a life that is authentic, which is true, is one that is of integrity. And that is a life that naturally feels good, even with our daily pains, even with the stuff. That is life.
And it's interesting because so for the last several years, I've kind of, yeah, taken or I've kind of like tore down my old life and now I'm like starting to step into that life that feels more aligned. And I always say to people, I'm a super optimistic person, but I've also over the last several years I've shed many tears and stuff. Some of it was super hard. There were some really hard lessons, some really difficult situations, but every time despite all of the challenges, I knew, okay, this is the path. And it's not just all gonna be rainbows and sunshine, but this is the path. And the lessons that I encounter on this path are all meant to guide me in the right direction.
I love what you're saying. I feel like I know, like when I feel like with spirit intuition, when just like really resonates, I get goosebumps. And I feel like if you could like zoom in, it's like goosebumps. And yeah, it's true. It reminds me of before I currently live in New Orleans, and before I was living in Paris with my family lives in Europe, and I was in Paris, and I was like, I love Europe. I am never leaving. Then I started to date my partner, who's in the music industry and tours, and he was going to move to Paris. Long story short, we were traveling, and we were traveling in Thailand, and he was like, I have a tour, I can't go back and forth. Would you move back to the States? And immediately I'm like, no, absolutely not. Nope, not going to happen. And he said, oh, out of his mouth popped, well, what about New Orleans? And I'd never been to New Orleans. And I said yes before I thought about it. I was like, sure. And then I was like, oh my gosh, what? What? I'm backpacking right now. And I've just agreed to move to back to the States that I don't want to be. So after that evening, we were traveling with some friends, mentioned, and we want to move to New Orleans. And he was like, oh, I have friends that have been living in this building. They are renting a condo. They're renovating theirs and they're trying to find a subletter. Well, lo and behold, within 24 hours, we have the apartment. So now I've made this into a decision. Now I'm locked in. And my head is like, what the heck are you doing? What the heck are you doing? And I moved here sight unseen and was miserable. I was suffering. I was away from my family. My family, who's very supportive, were also confused. They're like, Sonia, you said you wanted to live in Europe. Like, are you following this guy? Like, we trust you, but like, what are you doing? I'm myself. I work for myself. I'm isolated. My partner's on tour. And it was so hard. And it was so challenging, but every moment when I would get quiet and connect with my heart, my intuition, it was like, this is true. And it's almost having to get through the liminal space of change where we leave one reality or one part to get to another. Such a hard part of transition, and that's where the faith and that's where that connection is so important because our head will be confused. It doesn't, we can spiritualize it, we can whatever. But when we go to the heart, that's when we're like, okay, I am on my path and I can trust this even though I'm really in the birth canal of life. And now I can't imagine living anywhere else. Even surprisingly, even for myself, like even this is a divine appointment. My new best friend lives literally across the hall from me. It was a divine appointment. And it is and I find, it's like living a life from your intuition, from like is courageous, which comes from the French word cœur, which means heart. And that is how we show up. It's not for the faint of heart, but worth every single, worth it times a trillion.
That's amazing, and I mean, I love also, like, hearing stories of people finding that home, because I know that, at least for me, that took me a long time. That took me over 35 years to find that place that feels like home and where I arrived. And again, I've only been in Oakland for 3 years. I'm still building community. Not everything is, like, perfect just because I arrived here. But again, it's what you shared. It's that inner knowing of, like, "Okay, this is it," or I mean, of course, that can always change too, but right now, this is home, this is where my people are, and I really love that. And so earlier, you talked about how we're not always gonna see kind of the full road, but just the next inches ahead.
Mhm.
And I would love to hear more about your thoughts on how living an intuitive life and stepping into our purpose, how that connects.
Yeah. So when I'm talking about intuition, it's not, in my world, it's not out here. So what I'm pouring outside of myself, your listeners. It's in your body. And intuition is really the art is tuning into energy, the energy of who you are authentically. And so when you start to give that voice, when you start to give that presence, when you start to give that power, when you make decisions, that's what creates. And the only place that you can hear your intuition is in the present moment. Now it's right here because our spirit's directly connected to our body. And so often it's moment by moment by moment by moment. So, like, for example, if you look at really good athletes, right, if you watch them play, they move with the ball. They'll move with it. The last thing to move is their head because they're sensing the energy. And so when we're talking about purpose, there's purpose and then there's service. And I find that especially like in America, we can really confuse the two. We're like, we want my purpose to be my work and do all this. Your purpose, and it's all different for all of us, but that's where when we tune into our spirit, it's what do I want to create? What am I here to learn? What are my gifts that I'm here to share with others? And for some people it's all in one, like my purpose and my service and myself, or but for a lot of people they can be different. And so I find that really important because I feel like we get really hung up on like purpose. But for example, if you're spirit and you're like, you're somebody really great at creating community. like that is such a catalyst of change. And like that is your gift and that is your purpose. It doesn't necessarily have to be a job. It can be bringing people together for dinner. It can be any different thing. And your service is how you show up and contribute to humanity, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a janitor, whether you're a banker. Like those are ways of being of service. So that's where our spirit, intuition, and that deeper curiosity, listening and knowing and honoring that light gives you a really clear way to navigate that moves out of the binary of a lot of times in our world. It's like, oh, like a lot of questions people ask. First thing, what's your job? I find that the most boring question in the world. I mean, people do
Yeah.
have really great jobs, but like it's usually how we relate, right? And it's like how so just in this whole other way, it changes us from this place of like, our ego of these different roles to from role to role to like soul to soul. Like this is all the stuff that I'm here to share. Like what's all the stuff that you get to share? And then that becomes like creative and collaborative. And that's where your intuition is you. It's essential. So just how are you listening? Are you curious? That's all you need to do.
That's and I love the part that you shared about honoring our light. That is such a beautiful way to say it.
Thank you, Angie. It is because, you think about a light and our light and when we share it lights other people's. You can't control other people, you can't do anything, but I just even think about play. They meant those things. Those are places that we honor and share our light. And it's like a candle. One candle lights another candle, lights another candle, lights another candle, that lights another candle. That is inspiration. And inspiration comes from the root word, like to aster, the French word to breathe, breath. That is your spirit.
It's so interesting what you said about that it impacts other people. So because a couple of years I had an experience that really stuck with me, and I was like kind of stuck in the mud of my life in DC that really was not aligned and I knew it. And but my head, my logical thinking was like, this is what you signed up for. So
Right.
this is what you're gonna do now.
Right.
And
Responsible.
yeah. And so, but at the same time, I wanted to step back into my spirituality. So I started exploring that. And yeah, I'm not a big church person, but I went to a Unitarian church because I wanted to see if that could be my spiritual home.
Yeah. Love
And
it.
it was this really fun church. They sang like Whitney Houston songs. It was so cool. And there
Love.
was and I can see it in front of me to this day. There was an elderly lady who was in the back, and she was, like, dancing and really feeling the music, and you could tell she did not care
Mm,
what people thought, and it made me really uncomfortable. Like,
mm.
almost like a part of me was a little judgy, and then I realized, "Oh, it's because that's where I wanna get to that place, and I'm too scared to go for it."
Yeah.
And I think about that experience of just seeing that lady dance. I think about that every now and then because I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the North Star I'm moving towards of like, I'm not caring so much about what people around me think, but allowing myself to dance.
Mm. I so love that, and I feel like there's a few parts in it that I really love. Even that story is, in my world, I'm like that's a earth angel. That was your guide. That was a message from the universe. Something that just resonated so true. And again, the thing we're talking about, because is awareness. It's like I can notice there's a part that's like because it's our human nature. It's like we're like, oh gosh, I should. And it's like wait a minute, let me just take a moment, and then in your like even your spirit is like I that's what I want, because there's the the freedom and our ego, and I say like ego and ego gets like a bad rap. It's not, kill your ego. I'm like, please don't do that. We need it to self separate, but we want to train our ego to be in service spirit. And ego is the thing that says, whoa, 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 like that holds you back. That says, like, okay, you're feeling the music that wants to, it's like tight butt, like a, but that when we when we can not have to engage in conversation, but just know someone's turn down the volume and then go to our higher self, that's where we change the channel. It's a different way that like I said, inspires people. It's like, wait, I can also do that. And the barrier is that place of being uncomfortable. It's not dangerous. It's just different. It's just different. So it's like maybe I'll start with the toe tap or maybe like a little shoulder wiggle. And then pretty soon we're going for it. And I love what you hit on. It's like when we can either get like jealous or judgy or things like that, it's often a mirror of something that our deeper selves want. I think of, and, I have a friend, I've been learning to DJ for a while, and I have a friend, Tom, who learned when I was in Thailand. He had my partner show him how in an evening. And the next day he went to a place in Pai where I'm in Thailand and was like, I want to have a DJ set. And they're like, all right, sure. 2 days later, he is up there doing his debut. And there was a part of me that I was like, Tom, like, I can't believe it. Like, you just learned. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's because I want to do that. And my fear of being judged or doing it badly or whatever is keeping me in my position that has nothing to do with him. That's my stuff. And I was like, good example. I love that. Thank you. Go for it.
I love that story too. And so just because you touched on it and we talked about it early before we started the episode, but can you explain tight butt syndrome?
Oh, yes. TBS. TBS. That's where we call it in our family. So, when we're talking about when we're in our intuitive self, right? It's like, yeah, and this is how I often teach people to discern between our thinking mind and our intuition. What we're talking about is how does it feel, right? So when we're in our heads talk a lot. It's like a little rotisserie chicken on a spit, and it goes around and around and around and around. And our energy is in our head. And what happens is we stop breathing, we get squeezed. Like, just call to mind a moment when you were like really in your head. And just think about how your body felt. It's like everything gets squeezed. Our shoulders get higher, our jaw gets tighter, our butt cheeks literally get clenched, and we like pop our little spirit out of our body. And often too, with that, that's where we get stuck. We don't move with the energy. We're like, little energetic landfills. And what it is that, and it's control. And it's like our little ego intellect trying to keep us safe. It's like, don't, but it squeezes our whole self. And you can see and feel a tight butt syndrome. Because first, there's no smile. Or even like sometimes I have my own TBS moments, like, when I'm overworked or haven't been feeding my spirit or whatever. I'm like, I can feel it because when I'm in TBS, my jaw gets tight. My lips actually get really pursed, almost like a little butthole. I have no humor. I have no space. I get really critical. It's like everything, tight butt syndrome, right?
Oh my God, I love this.
And you know what? A quick cure, boom, you're in TBS. Humor, play, get a song, crank Celine Dion and sing at the top of your lungs. And at first, you're going to be like, ugh. But by the end of that track, you are going to feel a shift because you're moving that energy. Go for a walk, put on a song, dance it out. And the funny thing, again, our ego will resist it. This is pointless. What's this? I hate this. I don't want to do this. And then when we move, when we start to connect those parts, the energy starts to flow. We drop back in, and all of a sudden realize we have a lot of choice.
I love the idea and the concept of TBS so much. And I know we talked a lot about bringing play into our life and allowing ourselves to have fun. And I'm wondering for anyone listening who wants to have a stronger connection with their intuition but doesn't really know where to start, what's one tool or exercise that you would recommend?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I have so many, but I'm going to give you a really simple tool. First, let's just check in with our frame of mind. Who's doing the talking? Is our ego? Sometimes it's like, all right, I want to talk more with my intuition. Maybe this is new. Maybe this feels, out of your world in one way or another. Maybe your head's like, I don't even know if I believe this is true. Okay. Fine. Let's just notice that. And then just lean into some curiosity. I'm just going to be curious about having an experience. All right. So now our first step is creating opening, an open frame of mind so that we can even start to feel that energy. Second, I want you to just as simply as my tool I teach all my clients and all my classes and all my videos, rub your hands together fast, like you're starting a fire, and then just gently pull them apart. And you'll feel your own energy. It'll be like a ball. And you can just play with it and just notice the feeling of it. Now look around just the room and see if you're safe by yourself, a moment of some quiet. And then you can put one hand in your heart, one hand in your belly. If that doesn't, some people, that's not comfortable, wrap your arms around yourself, put a hand on your heart, your forehead, anything, try them out, see what feels true. And then just take a deep breath in through your nose. Imagine like you're breathing up through your feet. And then exhale and gently close your eyes. And just let your breathing return to normal, feeling your heartbeat, and just shift your attention from your head to your heart center. And something amazing will happen. First, the chatter of your head will start to quiet. And then you'll start to feel and connect with your spirit, your essence, your energy. And then I'll encourage you to go one step further is in feeling that, opening that curiosity. So no wrong answers. Just start to give voice to how that feels. Right? It's like, ooh, this feels grounding. This feels energetic. This feels creative. This feels blue. No right or wrong. But in starting to give that voice, you start to move into ownership of your spirit, of your intuition. And you start to reorient your head. We'll start to connect to your heart because I'm meant to be the best of friends. And then you'll start to pay attention to that energy that we're talking about. That is your intuition that will guide you moment to moment. And any moment you're feeling overwhelmed in TBS, boom. And that exercise, as simple as start your day with it, end your day with it. I need some help. Just do that and just be curious. What does my spirit say? What does my intuition say? And see what bubbles up from your body. And it'll come in fast because it's the way you're naturally designed to live. It's not something new. We're just a new type of listening.
I can't wait to try that.
I wish I didn't have my mic in my hand. I would show you right now.
Yeah, I can't wait to try that. That sounds so cool. And I mean, this is such a fun conversation, but I want to be respectful of your time. So to wrap things up, I want to ask you a few questions that I ask all of my
Love it.
guests.
I love it. Let's go for it, Andrea. It's such an honor. I'm having so much fun.
This is so much fun. Yeah, and having some good laughs during this conversation. It's so great. First question. Can you tell us about a time that you experienced a synchronicity?
Oh, like so many. um, I I feel like I see have them all the time. And my word synchronicity is like your intuition. I mean, even just my stay in Thailand. When I was like, we're moving to New Orleans, and within 6 hours, I had an apartment. I still live in the apartment in the best neighborhood, in the best place. I moved across the hall from my best friend. That happened in like one moment of saying yes. That just showed up. I that is a super quick example of like it was in my world a divine appointment, synchronistic.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great example. And then can you tell me about a time the kindness of a stranger has made a difference in your life?
Mm. I love that question. It reminds me of Mr. Rogers of just like, within that, remember the helpers because kindness goes so far. And it's such a simple, easy thing that we can do to others to connect us to our spirit and the other spirit. I think of this as also even be a synchronicity. When I first, I went to college out in Portland, Oregon. And right before I moved into a single and one of my best friends in high school had recently committed suicide. And so I moved to Portland just really traumatized in a sense. And my school was a school called Lewis and Clark. It was up on a hill, and I took the city bus into the city. And I knew nothing about Portland. It was my first 24 hours there. I went and saw a movie And then it was night, and I was like, "Okay, I have to make my way back to school." And this is before Uber. And so I take what I'm assume is just the reverse route of the city bus. But the city bus drops me at the end of the line in front of this, like, big hill. I have no idea where I am. It's, like, no Google Maps, and so I go to a police officer, and I'm like, "Hey, can you help me get back to school?" And he's like, "You see that road, that hill? Just follow it up." Alright, so I start trudging along, and I got my cell phone, and the cell phone, I'm looking is actually dying, and as I'm walking, I'm realizing that I am on a two-road hill on this hill with no houses anywhere around me, no headlights. I've now been walking for 45 minutes, for an hour. I have no idea where I am. I have no idea what's going on. So in that moment, and my phone's almost dead, and I'm like, "I need help." So I asked my angel, this means help. I'm like, "Help, SOS, I need help." I round this bend, and on the side of the road was a taxi. There's a man in the back seat going through the stuff, and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's a taxi." I walk up and I say, "Hi," like, and he's surprised, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I just moved here and I need help. Can you help me? I'm at Lewis." I said, "Absolutely. Please get in the back of my car. I will happily give you a ride home." And so I'm chatting with him, and I'm kinda like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Oh, at the top of this hill is a hospital, OHSU, and my father just passed away. My elderly father just passed away, and I was collecting his belongings." And, first there was just the kindness of his help. He brought me, and I'm crying, then he's crying, then we're having this, like, beautiful moment. Then he, like, brings me to Burgerville and gets me a milkshake and drives me back to my school and gives me his business card, and he's like, "If you ever need help, know that you have friends in Portland." And I will never forget just his patience and his kindness and going out of his way in a moment where he could have easily said, like, "I have no capacity." But it touched me and reminds me always to slow down, pay attention, to be generous with others because it was such a gift, and I don't even think he knew how much I needed that and how much that impacted me. So I'm gonna carry it to this day.
Wow. I mean, yeah, first of all, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss.
She's my little angel now, Alana, one of my wonderful, but yeah, thank you.
And that was such a beautiful and powerful way to end the conversation. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing and for taking the time to join me. Really means a lot. And this was such a wonderful conversation. I know people will get a lot out of this. So I really appreciate it. And so, for anyone who's interested in connecting with you and finding out more about your awesome work and wants to buy your book, where can they find you? Where can they get the book?
Oh my goodness. Well, first, Andrea, I just want to say thank you so much. It is an honor to just be in and around your light and, just seeing you as a fellow bright light that is here, that's creating a huge impact and just showing up. So I just first want to thank you for your time, your energy, your beautiful spirit. It's truly an honor. So if you're interested, I feel like I have so many different offerings. You can come first to my website, soniatully.com. I do intuitive readings, mentoring, group classes. You can find me on Instagram at Sonia Tully Official. You can find me on YouTube. I do a video every week that's like a grounded lesson. You can find me on all sorts of my podcasts. It's all related. And, if anything, you can just shoot me an email at hello@soniatully.com. And yeah, come to my website. I have a spirit type quiz. I have an intuitive toolkit quiz. I have all sorts of stuff. I have tons of tools that I can't wait to share with you so that you can play with your spirit, your intuition, and I can't wait to see what you create.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was a wonderful conversation. Thank you for the great laughs and yeah, really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for the work that you're doing. And yeah, I can't wait to I'll definitely want to take one of your classes at some point.
Oh my gosh, yes, please. I'm actually doing Psychic University's my 5 week long class that I think is next week, which I don't know, probably be off. But come check it out. Yes, I have classes, workshop, all my favorite things. I would love to have you in there. You're like part of our soul family. Yeah. I'm so grateful, and I love it. You can see the light in your eyes, the smile on your face, the no TBS here. And I'm gonna like go listen to like Celine Dion when we get off. I like in my head, I drove all night, has been playing.